What's up, everybody? I've been wanting to explore some longer form content, and here we are. Listen, I'm in a new house. I have a new haircut. This seems like the perfect time to just dabble in something new. TikTok is great and I love it, but sometimes I put in so much effort and nobody wants to watch it because it's like 65 seconds long rather than your normal like 10-second long videos with the text over the screen this big. We're gonna try it. Hopefully you like it. I was thinking the other day, because I watched a movie that completely gutted me, if I'm being honest. And I was thinking about how I'm such an easy crier. So I'm gonna give you the last 10 movies that I cried to. No skips, okay? You can judge me all you want. The last movie I cried to was The Worst Person in the World from 2021. Now, people had been telling me to watch this. I've seen so many good reviews and I knew it was on Hulu. I just kept putting it off. You know, I was like, I'm not in the mood for this. I don't know if I ever was gonna be in the mood for that. Like, when are you in the mood to just get ruined emotionally? I don't know. But it's a great movie. 5 stars. If you haven't seen it, this movie is about a woman in her late 20s who is just figuring out her life, making decisions here and there that kind of make her feel like the worst person in the world. I can see how some people may think that this is kind of an overplayed trope. We've seen this a lot both in comedy and in serious movies. But as someone who is approaching my late 20s, I get it. I mean, this one really hit me. Even though things are stable in my life, I have no idea what I'm doing. And the identity crisis is scary. I'm too old to be this confused. This is a full 5 out of 5 crying. My fiance was a little worried about me. She looks over and I'm just full-blown sobbing. She's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, the movie's just really sad. Babe Wake Up, a new relatable sad girl who feels lost in life, just dropped. Number 2, the most recent movie I cried to was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that just came out this year. I always felt like I didn't love Guardians of the Galaxy as much as everybody else. I always felt one step below the rest of the crowd. So when people were hyping up the third one, I took it with a grain of salt. And constantly, throughout this movie, I was proven wrong again and again and again. I caught myself actually laughing at the jokes. Sometimes jokes in modern Marvel movies are not that funny. These ones were hilarious. The colors were beautiful. The background of space was just gorgeous to look at, especially compared to Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I just watched last night. Atrocious. I have not ever seen a Guardians of the Galaxy film in theaters, and hearing the needle drops at that full volume that you're kind of meant to experience it in completely transported me into the film. Now, I was by myself in this theater and I cried pretty hard twice. I actively remember having to take my shirt and wipe my eyes. I give it like a 4 out of 5 crying. It was pretty intense. I was a little snotty, alone in a theater. There was a couple people behind me. They definitely heard me. It was a little embarrassing. The movie itself, I'm giving a 4.5 out of 5. Third most recent movie I cried to was Songbirds. And if you've seen my randomized movie experience, you already know the review on this one. This is a documentary about a guitar museum that ended up closing during COVID. Most of this film is about explaining guitar history and having members of the community that enjoyed this place talk about why it was so special. In terms of crying level, I'll give it a 1 out of 5. It was just a quick tear. It was at the end. It actually ended up reopening and I think I was like getting really hopeful. And they talked about how Songbirds is now an educational foundation for teaching kids music. And that just got me. I was a big music kid growing up, and I firmly believe that teaching music is one way to really help a kid learn and process. I think that there's like data behind, learning music really helps with like math and science scores. I think that's wonderful. Probably should have rated it a 3 out of 5, but I gave it a 3.5 because people always get me in documentaries. Sometimes I just give a little half star when something makes me happy. Next we have Knock at the Cabin. Now, I forgot that I cried to this movie because if I'm being honest, I thought it was okay. Straight off the bat, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Might have gone even a little lower if Dave Bautista hadn't completely carried this entirely mediocre script. The concept was pretty cool. Quickly learned that it just was not being executed the way I think it should have been. The moment I cried is right at the end when Eric is making his big decision. I just shed the tiniest little 1 out of 5 tear. Just a little bit. Spoiler alert if you want to skip like 10 seconds ahead. You know who would have survived and saved humanity? Lesbians. Up next we have Swiss Army Man. Now, if you've seen this movie and you're like, why did you cry? You're a liar, because I know you at least teared up a little bit. This movie is beautiful. It is so weird. Are the Daniels so good at that? Of course, they've won so many Oscars this year with their beautiful Everything Everywhere All at Once, and everybody knows that that's amazing and weird and makes you cry. This is the same thing. There's one thing you learn about me from this video. I love it when movies just appreciate life. I think life is the most beautiful thing. It's my favorite subgenre of movie. Now, there may be a lot of farting and gross bodily fluid aspects in this movie, but it has so much heart. There is a montage in the middle of this movie where Hank and Manny are just going through the mundane aspects of life together to kind of show Manny what is life all about. And that is where I lost it. It wasn't too much of a cry. I would give it maybe 2 out of 5 cry. Great movie for weirdos. The first fart will make you laugh. The last fart will make you cry. Then we have Interstellar. I've seen this movie half a dozen times and I cry every single time. Even though I know the plot, I still cry when he gets on the little video call with his daughter who's growing up. Matthew McConaughey is just sobbing in space. Gets me every time. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 cry just because I've seen it so many times. The first time I watched it, I was a mess. That was a 5 out of 5. Maybe one day I won't cry, but that day's not today. This movie, of course, is a 5 out of 5. I think it's fantastic. And if you enjoy this movie, you need to go back, watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then rewatch this movie because 2001: A Space Odyssey is fantastic. And it really just shows you this 1960s movie set up so much premise for how we view space films today. It's a completely different experience after you've seen 2001. I would highly recommend it. I just want to give Hans Zimmer a 5 out of 5 because there would still be tears, but there wouldn't be that many tears if it weren't for your score. My wig flew and is currently orbiting every far corner of space and time with Mr. McConaughey. And we have About Time. I had to watch this for my 52-week film challenge, which I'll have a video coming out about soon. The romance plot is not what made me so emotional. It was this father-son moment right at the end on the beach that made me let out a pretty decent cry. I'd say a 4 out of 5 cry. I was pretty hard into this one. Time travel is a pretty common film aspect. But this one brought a lot of freshness to it. You can't disguise this as a rom-com and then make me cry about a father-son relationship. That's not fair. That made me cry too hard. Then we have 20-something. Now this is an interesting find for me because I was doing my randomized movie experience and I found A Spark Story, which is a documentary on Disney Plus about them trying to find new animators. They found 2 artists that had kind of developed their own short story. And so here I watched the behind the scenes development of 20-something. I could really see the heart and soul get poured into this. It's about a 21-year-old trying to get her first drink, and inside of her little trench coat is, 3 different versions of herself. Her 16-year-old self, her 10-year-old self, her 1-year-old self. Not a metaphor for how uneasy we always feel despite having to be so adult and growing up. I just feel like that kid again. I'm gonna give it a quick 1 out of 5 cry. I was just tearing up as the credits roll. I do think it's a beautiful short film. I did give it a 5 out of 5. I loved the animation style here. There was a lot of really interesting techniques that she used, and I thought it came off great. 9th most recent movie I've cried to is The Banshees of Inisherin. This movie is so sad the entire time. I was just like, why won't you be his friend? I don't think they ever answered that question for me. Every 5 seconds after being like, why won't you be his friend? I was like, wow, Ireland is beautiful. I want to go there. And that was pretty much the 2 moods I had the entire movie. Spoiler alert, I did cry when the donkey died. It was a quick 1 out of 5 cry. R.I.P. I'll give this movie a 4 out of 5. That one unemployed friend at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The final movie I most recently cried to is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I will never shut up about this movie. This is fantastic. They took Pinocchio's story that has been so overdone a billion times and mostly poor, and it put it in the context of fascism. Not what I was expecting, but phenomenal. The animation is god tier. Guillermo del Toro's imagination is constantly surprising me. There's always another avenue that he finds, and it's undefeated. I thought I was so cool because I didn't cry the entire movie. Look at me not crying. Then literally the last 5 minutes, I let out a cry. I'd give it a 2 out of 5 cry. Moderately light cry. I give this movie a 4.5 out of 5. I recommend it to anybody who will hear me say it. Easily the best take on Pinocchio since Shrek 2. So there's my last 10 movies I cried to. Let me know if I am a wimp, if you completely agree, or if you have some weird ones that you've cried to in the past.